Welcome to Sex Ed with DB. I'm your host, DB. Let's get into it. Hello, Sex Ed with DB listener. If you love science-based conversations about sex and relationships, then I think the Sex and Psychology podcast will become one of your new favorite shows. Hosted by Dr. Justin Lehmiller, a social psychologist, author, and senior research fellow at the Kinsey Institute, this podcast offers a deep dive into the science of intimacy, desire, and connection. Each week, Justin sits down with leading experts to discuss topics like attraction, love, communication, fantasies, orgasm, pleasure, and so much more. What I love about this show is that it takes cutting-edge research and turns it into practical insights you can actually use in your everyday life. Whether you've ever wondered what your sexual fantasies reveal about you, how to keep the spark alive, how to explore your kinky side, or how to successfully navigate open relationships, there's an episode for you. With more than 500 episodes released to date, there's a huge library of fascinating conversations to explore. Use the link in our episode description to start with one of my favorite episodes, How to Have Amazing Sex, featuring sex therapist Dr. Emily Jamea. Then subscribe to the Sex and Psychology podcast wherever you get your podcasts. If self-pleasure has ever felt intimidating, awkward, or not for you, Nancy is here to completely change your mind. This is a brand that makes pleasure feel safe, joyful, and actually normal, just like any other way you take care of yourself. Their products are cute, discreet, and thoughtfully designed so you can explore at your own pace. No pressure, no confusion. If you're ready to make pleasure feel a little more like you, head to hellonancy.com and use code SEXEDWITHDB for 25% off. Meet the new Magic Wand Waterproof, my go-to shower toy. It's the most powerful magic wand ever made, chock full of those famous deep rumbly vibrations, now totally cordless and totally bath-friendly. We're talking about using this in the shower, check. Tub, check. You get 4 intensity levels, 4 vibration patterns, an intuitive control panel, and that soft silicone head with the flexible neck Magic Wand is known for. Long-lasting, rechargeable battery, full-size power, and lots of amazing orgasms. The Magic Wand Waterproof. Pleasure just went aquatic. Quick thought. Why does lube need labels like for him, for her, for this kind of sex? Pleasure doesn't fit into one box, and your lube shouldn't either. That's why I love Uberlube. It's just really fantastic lube. Silky, long-lasting, body-safe, and works for literally any kind of play. Solo, partnered, however you define it. No assumptions and no categories. Just a formula that works. Because quality doesn't need labels. Use code SEXEDWITHDB for 10% off at uberlube.com now. Hello, and welcome back to Sex Ed with DB. I'm DB, your favorite sex educator and pleasure expert, and today's anonymous listener question is tender, complex, queer, trauma-informed, and also involves something you all love to hear about, based on the downloads that we've seen from episodes with this theme, blowjobs. And here is what our anonymous listener wrote in. It's a long one, so buckle up. And trigger warning, there is discussion of gender-based violence, aka GBV, in this episode. If that feels hard for you, feel free to skip this one. Okay, here's what our anonymous listener wrote in. Should I give up on men? Can I be with a cis man if I don't like giving blowjobs? I feel like a bad person for wanting to receive, but not give head, as that seems like an uneven sexual dynamic. For context, I am a pan-cis woman GBV survivor who struggles to feel safe with men. I am more attracted to women, but occasionally I feel a connection with a man, but usually never pursue the connection because part of myself doesn't believe I can have a safe, equal, and fulfilling relationship with a man as a queer femme. Sex is really important to me, but at the same time, I just don't feel comfortable doing what I feel like the majority of guys will want sexually. I need to be in control in bed to feel safe, and even for guys I'm attracted to, I don't want to suck dick, and am even scared to be penetrated still. Does this mean I can never have a relationship with a man? First of all, Thank you for trusting me with your story and with this question. Listeners, if you want to write in a story with a question or just a question anonymously and have me potentially answer it on the pod, the anonymous question box link is in the show notes for you. Second, no, you are not a bad person. And third, no, you do not have to give blowjobs to be with a cis man. Fourth, no, not wanting to suck dick does not mean you're banned from heterosexual relationships forever. And we're going to get into each of those things and more. So today we're going to get into why not wanting to give head is not the same thing as being selfish, why receiving pleasure does not create a debt, why trauma can change what feels safe in your body, why dating cis men as a queer femme can feel very complicated, how to think about equality in sex without forcing yourself into acts that you don't want, and what a safe, fulfilling relationship with a man could actually look like if you want one. So let's get into it. First and foremost, you are allowed to have sexual boundaries that are inconvenient to other people. Let's start with the big headline. You're allowed to not want to give blowjobs, period. You can just simply not want to, and that's enough. Now, in your question, there is trauma context. You shared that you are a GBV survivor and that you struggle to feel safe with men, and that really matters. And I want to be really clear on this. Your boundary is valid because it is your boundary, not because you have earned it through your experience and through pain. Sometimes survivors can feel like they need to prove why they're allowed to say no, like the boundary has to come with some sort of explanation. But just saying I don't want to is a complete reason. And I know that can feel really hard, especially when we're talking about sex with cis men, because so much of mainstream sexual culture teaches women in particular and femmes that male pleasure is the default. Like sex starts when he is hard, ends when he comes and orgasms, and everything else is extra. And that's obviously not true. Your desire and comfort matter. And no one is entitled to a sex act just because they enjoy it or expect it or saw it in porn or had a previous partner who did it. All right, now let's talk about the guilt piece that you shared. You said, I feel like a bad person for wanting to receive but not give head, as that seems like an uneven sexual dynamic. And I totally hear this. I think a lot of us can fall into this feeling like if we're receiving something, we want to be able to give it back, especially if we are socialized as femmes or women. And I actually think this is a very sweet concern in some ways. It tells me that you care about reciprocity and fairness. You care about not using someone. All of that is good. But here's an important reframe. Sexual equality does not mean identical one-for-one sexual acts. It doesn't mean you did 7.5 minutes of oral, so now I owe you 7.5 minutes of oral. Sex just doesn't work that way. Sexual reciprocity is about mutual care, consent, attention, and pleasure, and it doesn't require mirrored behavior. So for example, one partner might love giving oral and not receiving it. One partner might love penetration, the other might not. One might be more into toys, and one might be more into hands. A sexual relationship can be deeply mutual, even when the items that you're ordering on the sexual menu, so to speak, are different. And the question isn't, are we doing the exact same things for each other? But better questions are, do we both feel cared for, respected, like our boundaries are respected, like we feel like our pleasure matters? Do we have access to joy and satisfaction? That is equality. That is equity, not identical performance. Let's talk about the debt piece in here. I want to be super clear on this. Receiving pleasure does not put you in debt. If someone goes down on you, you do not automatically owe them oral sex. Same thing with an orgasm. If someone is generous with you, you can be generous back, but there are plenty of other ways to be authentic and for it to be safe for you. But that consent is not transferable. Like consent to receive oral is not consent to give oral. And there are men who genuinely love giving oral. And there are men who do not need oral in return to feel satisfied. There are also men who are perfectly happy with hands, toys, grinding, mutual masturbation, erotic power dynamics, dirty talk, or other forms of intimacy. And there might be men who you meet also, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, who act like not getting blowjobs is the end of the world. And I have met many of those men in college, boys, I'll say. They're technically men, but you know what I mean. And I'm sure most of you listening have met at least one man like this too. But those men are not your men. We are looking for someone who is actually evolved and able to have a conversation about pleasure in a way that feels good for both of you. Now, I want to talk about the trauma piece. You shared that you are a GBV survivor and that you need to be in control in bed to feel safe. And you also shared that penetration feels scary and giving oral does not feel comfortable. And this makes a lot of sense. For a lot of survivors, sex is not just about attraction and it feeling good. It's about safety, your nervous system feeling good. It's about whether your body actually feels like it can stay present. And it's about whether you feel like you can stop something and actually be listened to if and when the time comes. And certain sex acts can feel more vulnerable than others. Giving oral to someone with a penis can feel physically and psychologically intense for some people. You might feel physically confined or afraid of disappointing someone or being pressured to continue. And penetration can also feel scary, especially if your body associates it with pain or danger. So when your body is saying, I don't want this, it's not that there's something wrong with you. You're protecting yourself. And does that mean that your boundaries are never going to change? Not necessarily. Some folks have hard no's forever, but some folks have them not right now. And boundaries can shift with time, with therapy, with the right partner. And all of these are valid. The goal is not to become this version of yourself who can tolerate something. It's to build a safe sex life where you feel good to want what you're engaging in. You deserve desire and to feel good while having sex. So, the big question, does this mean you can never have a relationship with a man? No, it does not mean that. But it might mean that the type of man that you can have a safe relationship with is very specific, and that's good. Specific is good. You're not trying to be compatible with men as a broad category, but be compatible with one person or a few, depending on your relationship structure. But for this exercise, let's just assume monogamy. So you're really just looking for that one person who gets it, who respects your queerness, doesn't treat your queerness like a threat or a fetish, who understands that being with a cis man doesn't erase your queerness, who respects your body, who does not sulk when you say no and coerce you into things. And that person exists out there. But this is really important. You're allowed to decide that dating men does not feel worth it to you right now. You don't owe men anything, especially your availability to date them. You can take a break. You can date women, you can date queer people, you can date nobody. And you don't have to declare swearing off men forever. This can just be like a for now kind of thing. If you found an emotionally mature, sexually respectful, queer affirming man who was down to do other kinds of sex acts and respected you and wanted you for who you were, what could sex with a cis man look like if blowjobs and penetration were off the table? A lot of good stuff. I talk about this a lot on the podcast, but penetration is not the be-all end-all of sex. There's making out, grinding, hands, toys, sensation play, dirty talk, dominance, being touched externally, keeping underwear on, deciding that you want to figure out other body parts to experience pleasure with. Maybe the penis is present, but it's not central. Groundbreaking idea. And again, please listen when I say this. Penis in vagina sex is not the definition of real sex, and oral sex is not mandatory. Penetration is not mandatory, orgasm is not mandatory, and reciprocity is not mandatory. What are mandatory things are consent, respect, communication, safety, and the ability to be clear with the person you're having sex with and say, here's my boundary, and I want to be respected. And that's the standard. And the question really is can he meet you where you actually are? And so it's important to be able to understand how to talk about this experience with a potential partner. You don't need to disclose every piece of your trauma history right away. You get to decide how much you share and when. So you might say something like, just so you know, I move slowly sexually and I'm not currently comfortable with giving oral or penetration. I'm very into sex and pleasure, but I need a dynamic where my boundaries are respected and where we can explore without pressure. Or if it's like on the apps or you're texting and it's just like even shorter that you want to say something, I'm into you, but I don't do blowjobs or penetration right now. I'm open to exploring other things if there's trust and no pressure. And I know that might feel really scary to say, but that kind of clarity is a really good filter, and a good partner will respond with curiosity, respect, and care, and they will listen. What that person is not allowed to do is pressure you, guilt you, bargain with you, or treat your boundaries like it's a personal insult to them. Someone can absolutely say, like, that doesn't work for me and it's not a match. But what they can't do is say, that doesn't work for me, so you should change your ability to do those things and you should change yourself. Absolutely not. We will not have that. So, the final question, should you give up on men, dear listener? You do not have to decide that forever right now, is my answer. You're allowed to pause. You can be selective. You can prioritize women and queer people if that feels safer or hotter to you right now. You could only date men who meet a very high bar, but you don't need to make a blanket rule unless that helps you feel grounded. Sometimes people say, I'm done with men, and that is it. And maybe that feels good for their nervous system, and that's totally fair. But if one day you meet a cis man and you feel connection, you don't have to shut it down just because you already promised that you were giving up on men. Instead, you can ask, does he respect my boundaries? Can he handle my queerness? Is he being patient? Can we talk about sex and different kinds of acts that we both might enjoy other than blowjobs and penetration? And can I feel like my full self with him? And if the answer is yes to those questions, there may be room for, a healthy, pleasurable relationship. So I want you to take away the fact that you are not a bad person for wanting to receive pleasure, and you're not selfish because you don't want to give blowjobs. You shouldn't feel shame because penetration feels scary. You're not disqualified from dating men because your sexual boundaries don't match what you assume most guys, quote unquote, actually want. And you're not required to make your body different, quieter, more compliant, smaller in order to be loved. And to my beautiful anonymous listener, I hear a lot of wisdom in your question. I hear someone who wants pleasure, but not at the cost of safety. Someone who wants intimacy, but not self-erasure. Someone who's trying to figure out whether desire and protection can coexist. And I know that they can for you. Your sex life doesn't have to be built around what we think men want. It can be built around what your body actually wants and says yes to. And if a man can't have hot, creative, connected, satisfying sex with you without blowjobs or penetration, that is proof that he lacks imagination. There are endless things to do. We recently had a foot fetish episode, so send him that. There's lots of other body parts, lots of other sexual acts that you can engage with. And I'm just sending you so much love. Thank you so much for writing in, and thank you all for listening. Love y'all. Talk to you next week.